Welcome into the On3 studios here in Nashville, Tennessee. It is Thursday morning-ish. It's actually like around noon, but we are here for another loaded episode of the Inside Scoop. We got a fun show today. Recruiting dead period ends Monday, so that means we're back to visits, commitments, flips, all the fun stuff that is essentially recruiting season. So recruiting season really starts when March dead period opens back up, which will be Monday, and then goes clear to the start of the season. We're going to see a lot of visits, a lot of commitments. It's going to be a good time. Before we get the show started, a little bit of news trickled out this morning at On3. Chad Simmons reported 5-star cornerback DJ Pickett, the number one corner in the country, plans to take official visits to LSU, Georgia, Miami, Oregon, Florida, and Florida State. Looking at his recruitment right now, I think LSU has been the team that has been surging, but you can't count out the in-state teams, Miami, Florida, Florida State, and then you got Oregon and Georgia. It's going to be a really interesting recruitment. I know Georgia just signs James Coley as wide receivers coach. He has some ties to the Sunshine State when it comes to recruiting. Oregon has already gotten DJ Pickett on campus once or twice. They're in a good spot as well, so this recruitment is about to start. All right, Sam Spiegelman also had some intel. Want to report on this before we get going. 4-star running back James Simon has locked in 2 visits for the spring, and it's Texas and LSU. I thought this recruitment was all LSU, but Texas, they're making it interesting. Simon's the number 8 ranked running back in the country, and LSU already has the number 1 ranked running back in Harlem Berry committed, but currently trending at 94% for James Simon. I know they want him both. LSU has room for them both, and James Simon is also the number 2 ranked player in the state of Louisiana. So can Texas go into the state and pull James Simon? I don't know. They're going to try to get him on, or they will get him on campus this spring. They're going to make their case, so we'll continue to follow that recruitment. So big show today. On3 updated the 2025 rankings on Monday. I talked to Charles Power here just about a minute. We'll have him on. We talk about the On3 outliers. I love outliers. You guys love outliers. We know what they are. They're the prospects that On3 ranks much higher than the rest of the industry. We'll cover those. Usually the rest of the industry catches back up with us, but it's fun to look at these guys early in the cycle. Then I'm talking Auburn recruiting with Jeffrey Lee. We love Jeffrey Lee. Then a real special guest, Rusty Mansell, in studio sitting at this desk. Dogs HQ insider Rusty Mansell sitting at the desk with me. Really special show today. The last one before the dead period. So let's get it. The 2025 recruiting cycle is in full swing, and as spring visit season approaches, On3 just released its latest recruiting update. Now, in today's video, I got Director of Scouting and Ranking here at On3, Charles Power. We're going to talk On3 outliers. You ask, what's an outlier? It's a recruit that On3 ranks higher than the rest of the industry, meaning 24/7 Sports, ESPN, and Rivals. But before we get into it, do me a favor right now. Hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. We talk recruiting 365 days out of the year, and we need you to be locked in. So hit subscribe. All right, let's start at the top of this list with offensive tackle Will Black, committed to Notre Dame from Connecticut. Now, we have him ranked as the number 6 prospect overall. I'm looking here. It says next highest ranking, NA. What does NA mean in terms of outliers?
Yeah, NA in this scenario means that he's a 3-star or unranked by everyone else in the industry. So Will Black checks in as the number 1 offensive tackle and a 5-star for On3, in large part due to his fantastic junior film. This guy is extremely coordinated, athletic. We thought he had the best junior film among the offensive tackle group, and just with his combination of size, movement skills, this guy brings a lot to the table as an offensive lineman, and really has a bunch of room to continue improving. But we just love his strength, coordination, and what he put on film as a junior.
Notre Dame putting together an outstanding recruiting class and a great O-line class starting there with Will Black. All right, let's move on to the next prospect on our outliers list, and that's athlete Michael Terry out of San Antonio, Texas. We have him ranked number 14 overall. Next highest ranking, 24/7 Sports, who has him number 50. What do you like about Michael Terry?
Yeah, Michael Terry is a quintessential athlete prospect. He could play 4 or 5 positions at the college level conceivably. He is a 6'3", 210-pounder, a great track athlete, but extremely coordinated. So we saw him line up as a running back, as a receiver. He plays corner, and he makes big plays in every facet. Some schools like him as a running back. It's kind of rare we see a 6'3" running back, Josh, but this is how athletic and just gifted he is. Big time receiver. I think he had over 1,500 yards from scrimmage, 30 touchdowns, and also played defense. So this guy can do everything. And it's going to be fascinating to see kind of where he ends up at the next level. But there's no doubt he's a big prospect regardless of where he plays.
Yeah, number one athlete in the state of Texas. Last year, the number one athlete in the state of Texas, Terry Bussey.
Yep.
So a lot of competition there, and those Texas guys, they really stand out. All right, moving on to quarterback Matt Zollers. He's in Pennsylvania. We have him ranked number 17. And Charles, this is a guy that you've been telling me for the last 6 or 8 weeks to, hey, watch Matt Zollers' movement up the charts. Next highest ranking, we have him at 17. Next highest ranking is 24/7 Sports, who has him in the top 150 at number 148. Why are you so high on Matt Zollers out of Pennsylvania?
Yeah, I think Matt Zollers, when you look at his physical ability, 6'3.5", 200 pounds, his arm strength, one of the better arms among this quarterback group, and then his reactive playmaking ability. He can make a lot of plays in the face of pressure. He's athletic, can make improvisational plays, push the ball downfield vertically. So I think when you look at the overall skill set along with the physical tools, he stacks up really well within this quarterback group, Josh. And he's one that we've been higher on really for the majority of the process. We ranked him in the On 300 with just one Power 5 offer. His recruitment has since blown up, and I think he's fully deserving of being a national top 5 type quarterback prospect in this cycle.
Yeah, and no doubt in my mind, I think we see the rest of the industry catch up right now. Like I said, over 100 spots higher on 24/7 Sports, and they're the next highest ranking. All right, let's move on to our last outlier of today's video, and that's offensive tackle Broderick Scholl out of Oklahoma. Now, we have him ranked in the top 20 at number 18 overall, next highest ranking, NA. How are we so far out ahead of Broderick Scholl?
Well, Broderick Scholl is an interesting prospect. He moved to Oklahoma for his junior year, plays for a top high school program in Oklahoma at Bixby, but he is a freaky athlete as an offensive tackle, Josh. This guy is 6'5.5", 275 pounds. He has a 4.5 shuttle. I think when you look at this offensive tackle group, there's a lot of freaky athletes, but Broderick Scholl is the guy who really kind of sticks out. And when you turn on the film, he plays to that level. Just an elite twitch, a great run blocker. It has a big frame to go with that athleticism at 34-inch arms, 10.5-inch hands. So this is a guy who's going to continue to fill out. And I think he's the one who, as we project him moving forward, he's going to be a guy who's on Bruce Feldman's freak list or doing like combine, like performances. So
like the Evan Neal jump split.
Exactly.
Right.
I would not be surprised to see things like that come out about Broderick Scholl as he progresses through his career. But he's that good of a football player as well.
All right, lots of reasons why he's an outlier for us, and those are always fun to recap. Hey, what was your favorite outlier from the 2024 cycle? I know there was a lot of guys that we were out ahead of. You did a great job of getting ahead of a lot of these guys, and it's always funny to see the rest of the industry eventually follow suit. So who do you think was your favorite outlier from the 2024 cycle?
Yeah, I would probably go with Cam Coleman, the 5-star receiver who signed with Auburn. He ended up number 3 in the final on 300. He was a guy who had a ton of physical ability, was kind of the number 2 receiver for his high school program as a junior, but younger for the class and just completely blossomed really in the offseason going up until his senior year. Had a monster senior season, one of the best national all-star game performances I've seen with him at Auburn. So I think in my years of doing this, he's up there with among the biggest freak receivers, and it was just really fun to see the upside. We kind of believed in his upside, and it was just fun to see him kind of tap into that immense potential over his last year in high school.
Yeah, so the rankings dropped on Monday, the update to the 2025 class. Me and Charles did a video on the new 5-stars. You can find that on our channel. It's already there. There's probably about 4 or 5 more updates before the cycle ends. So when can fans expect the next rankings update?
I think we're probably looking sometime around April. We have some off-season events coming. We're going to continue to look at the junior season. A lot of prospects are going to emerge over spring football, spring practice with coaches getting on the road and then taking visits. And then we're going to kind of go through the national events in June and get ready for the senior season.
Yeah. All right, guys, let me know, comment section below, who's your biggest outlier? Maybe it's not even somebody that we have listed. Who would you have ranked higher than the rest of the industry? Let me know, comment section below. Auburn made some noise during the dead period, and on Monday, the Tigers landed a commitment from elite cornerback Devin Williams, but I got a feeling Hugh Freeze has more coming. In this video, I got Auburn recruiting expert Jeffrey Leon to talk about the priorities now that Devin Williams is on board. But first, Tiger fans, you got to do me a favor. Hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. I love talking Auburn recruiting. We're going to do it all off season. So hit subscribe for me, please. All right, let's bring on my guy, Jeffrey Lee of Auburn Live. Now, the commitment of Devin Williams puts the Tigers at number 8 in the On3 team rankings, currently sitting with 9 commitments. So there's a lot of room to add more, and there is more coming. Auburn spring priorities, let's take a look at them. We'll start at the top with offensive tackle Travaris Dice out of Fairburn, Georgia, 6'6", 275. Even though he's located in the state of Georgia, I kind of feel like this is a Gator-Tiger battle right here. Is that how it's setting up?
I think that's fair, Josh.
So where do you think that the Tigers stand? What are your sources saying on this one? I think when it came to offensive linemen, Auburn probably got the better of Florida in 2024. Can they keep it going in 2025?
Offensive line is going to be a huge position of need for Auburn in this 2025 class. Travaris Dice at or near the top of their wish list for an offensive tackle. They've managed to get him on campus several times. I think the most important visit was probably the last one right before the dead period, where he not only came, but he brought his family with him. I think that was very big for him, very big for his family. And, we've been doing this a long time, Josh. When a kid is serious about a school, he wants to see mama. He wants mama to see it and wants her to approve. And I think that's kind of what this visit, just reading the tea leaves, kind of felt like. Cole Pinkston, our recruiting expert there at Auburn Live, has been all over this one. He feels very good about Travaris Dice to Auburn. Travaris had set his commitment. He was going to make it in the fall, and then he moved it up. He was going to make it in the summer. And then after this last visit, he said, I think I'm going to be ready in March. So he's probably at the top of the board for Auburn when it comes to that commit watch.
Yeah, and obviously a position need. Auburn always trying to recruit those trenches, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Now, another intriguing name, one of the more intriguing names this spring is QB Husan Longstreet out of California. He's a 4-star prospect, and he has a visit set up with Auburn in March. What are your sources saying on where Auburn stands right now, and who do you think is the biggest competition here?
Surprisingly, Longstreet announced the top group back in early November, and Auburn wasn't mentioned. And then Auburn offered, I think it was November the 21st. And, they have slowly crept up his list. And, Auburn's been increasing its, attention, its pressure on him, and it seems to be paying off. They're going to get him for that cross-country trip, March the 23rd. He's going to bring his family along with him. I feel like, and from even talking to On3 Simmons, that Auburn's really, really in the picture here.
Yeah.
Texas A&M is also in there. He visited A&M back in February. I think he's going to try to visit them again. But Auburn would like to they've got their foot in the door. They'd like to kick it open a little bit. And I think that visit on March the 23rd is going to be big. Going out to California and getting a quarterback, at least for Auburn, is not something we've seen a lot in the past. So this is kind of new territory for Auburn fans, and Hugh Freeze has been able to do that at Ole Miss, and he's trying to do it here at Auburn. I think Auburn's got a pretty good shot, depending on how that visit goes. But getting him in and keep cracking that door open a little bit will go a long ways in trying to get him in this class.
Who do you feel like Auburn's battling here for Longstreet?
A&M. I really do. I think, Chaz Simmons certainly is plugged in here as well, and I defer to him, but I feel like Auburn's kind of got their eyes set on a battle with A&M right now.
All right. Now, we can't talk quarterbacks without mentioning Julian Lewis. Who do you think Auburn's in a better spot with? Julian Lewis out of Carrollton, Georgia, or Husan Longstreet out of California?
Believe it or not, Josh, even though Hussein hasn't visited Auburn, I really feel like Auburn's chances with him might be a little bit more. If I were doing a quarterback hot board for Auburn, I'd probably have him a little bit above Juju, only because there's so many other, competitors when it comes to Juju Lewis. He's committed to USC. Certainly, Georgia's not going anywhere. A lot of other schools in the SEC are fighting for Juju. Now, Auburn was able to get him on campus before the dead period. They're scheduled to get him back March the 16th. I don't ever count out Hugh Freeze when it comes to quarterbacks. But with that being said, even though Longstreet hasn't visited, I'd still probably lean a little bit there, just because I'm stepping back and I'm trying to take these, the orange and blue glasses off.
Sure.
So I would tend to lean towards Longstreet there over Lewis, but ask me again in a couple of weeks and I might say something different.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same on Lewis and Auburn. I think that there's 5 or 6 teams that are legitimately in on Julian Lewis. And I think Auburn's one of them. But of those 5 or 6 teams, they're probably on the outside looking in a little bit compared to maybe Georgia, USC, Alabama, maybe even Colorado. So Auburn, he's a priority to get him on campus this spring. We'll see what happens. I don't think Julian Lewis is any rush to make a decision. Moving down the list, one is linebacker Eric Winters, position need, and one of the most talented prospects in the state of Alabama, ranked number 93 overall in the country. How much of a priority is Winters for Auburn this early in the cycle?
Absolutely top priority for Auburn. They identified him early, have been on him a lot since before his junior season. Even this new staff, Josh Alders has been on him. Listed as a defensive back, but Auburn likes him at that linebacker spot. They want him to move down and play in the front 7. He's been to Auburn several times. It's right down the road in Enterprise, and those relationships have been built. He knows how big of a priority he is. He's very comfortable on campus. He's visited, again, like I said, several times, and he'll be back several times. We expect him back in March. And, he's a guy who hasn't really put a timeline or at least a specific timeline on it, but I think he wants to get it done spring, summer. So he's certainly another guy that we're keeping an eye on when it comes to a potential commitment.
All right. Now, speaking of potential commitment, when Micah DuBose decommitted from Georgia, he's from Mobile, Alabama, and when he decommitted from Georgia about 8 weeks ago, I thought it was maybe a matter of weeks, maybe days until he committed to Auburn. But now I'm seeing picks going in on the recruiting prediction machine for LSU. What's going on with Micah DuBose and Auburn? Is Auburn slipping?
Yeah, I think they're slipping. Obviously the buzz there with LSU, but the reason everybody was thinking, including yourself, Josh, and myself, is because when Micah DuBose decommitted, he wasn't shy about saying where Auburn stood. I mean, Auburn was number 1. He left the Iron Bowl back in November. He was still committed to Georgia, but he was basically saying Auburn's number 1 for me right now. So when he did decommit, it was easy to instinctively think that Auburn was the team to beat. And I think for a time there they were. I think a trip down to LSU might have changed some things. But it's hard for me to say right now where Micah DuBose stands on Auburn's board. I know he's kind of a tweener. He's listed. He could maybe play offensive tackle. He might be better suited in interior. So I'm curious to see how much Auburn pushes here. Mm-hmm. I feel like he's still a top target for Auburn. I'm not trying to make any excuses here for them. But I would be curious to see where he stands on the board and how hard Auburn pushes. But I do think Auburn would absolutely take this kid, absolutely wants this kid. And but LSU's got a little bit of that national buzz. We'll see if Auburn pushes to get some of that back.
You got to assume that they're going to get him on campus in March or April, right?
Absolutely.
That's got to be a priority there. So speaking of big visit weekends, we're about to come out of the dead period. We got less than a week here. When can Auburn fans expect the next big visit weekend on the Plains coming out of the dead period?
Big weekends. Okay, so you're looking at March the 16th. You're looking at March the 23rd. Those are going to be big weekends for Auburn. Typically during the spring on those Saturdays, you see Auburn move inside the stadium. They'll hold maybe a half scrimmage. They'll do some scrimmage there. They want kids there to see that. March the 16th is probably going to be that first big scrimmage visit day. Juju Lewis is expected to come in that day, top quarterback target. Zion Grady is expected to visit that day, top edge target. Andrew Maddox, the top defensive line target. He's from Mississippi. He's coming back for Auburn that day. Devin Williams is coming in that day. So at least 4 of those four top recruits, and arguably the top at each position. Devin Williams at cornerback, Andrew Maddox at defensive line, Juju at quarterback, and Zion Grady at the edge. So there's 4 top targets at each position expected to visit already. And, we're still 2.5, 3 weeks away from there.
Whew. Well, this spring and summer is going to be hot on the recruiting trail for Hugh Freeze and his staff. Jeffrey Lee from Auburn Live, you guys do a great job of covering recruiting and the team. You guys should all go check it out. Appreciate you dropping by the Inside Scoop today.
Absolutely, Josh. Thanks for having me.
Georgia is in a bit of an unfamiliar spot, sitting in the number 3 position as we start the 2025 cycle. They're usually number 1, but UGA only right now has 5 commitments as we head out of the dead period. Lots of room to add. And in this video, I got Rusty Manziel on to talk about a few of the most important targets we head into the spring. But first, UGA fans, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. I mean, we got Rusty Manziel in studio. You know, you got to hit subscribe. All right. Rusty from Dogs HQ, we're talking Georgia's top priorities, and the two top names on this list, Elijah Griffin and David Sanders, they kind of mirror each other as most important on offense and defense. Let's start with Elijah Griffin. Now, he's trending heavily to Georgia on the recruiting prediction machine. Is this a recruitment that you think, well, could be the foundation of this class? Could we see Elijah Griffin? Is there any way that Georgia could get him committed before we hit the summer recruiting months?
I think he's going to take his visits, but Georgia fans are accustomed to having dominating defensive linemen.
Yes.
You look at Jalen Carter, Trayvon Walker, Devontae Wyatt, all these guys the last couple of years, and people are like, who's the next one? Who's the next one? Well, I can tell you, Elijah Griffin is the next one if Georgia can land him. And Savannah Christian had a chance to see him in the state championship game. He's one of those guys you look at him, he's easy to be that guy. There's a reason he's a 5-star and number 2 rated player in the country.
Yeah, Elijah Griffin, unbelievable player. We'll see what happens, but I think Georgia has the inside lead.
I think Georgia right now has a good spot right now, but I think he's going to take his visits in June, and Georgia fans hope they can hold on to maybe a lead for going in his decision.
All right, now, is important on the defensive side of the ball as Elijah Griffin is. On the offensive side of the ball, it's offensive tackle David Sanders out of the Charlotte area. And there's competition for him. South Carolina, Clemson, well, everybody really in the country would like a shot at David Sanders. But in the Southeast, there is some competition for Georgia. How much of a priority has he been to Kirby Smart and his staff?
I think he's been to Georgia more times than any other school the last 3 years. He's a major target. Ironically, the first person that really recruited him was Matt Luke for Georgia. Well, guess where Matt Luke is now? He's at Clemson a couple years later. So, really, I think behind the scenes, this is a Georgia-Clemson battle. So you're going to see Matt Luke versus Stacey Searles in the end. I think one of those premier offensive tackles. You see him in person, you go, oh, my God, that kid's still in high school, and he has another year to play. Major target for UGA staff at offensive tackle.
Yeah. All right. Now, moving on. If we're going to talk Georgia spring recruiting, then we got to talk the quarterback position. And at the QB position, it's all about Julian Lewis right now. The quarterback out of Carrollton, Georgia, committed to USC. I just did my power rankings this week on Julian Lewis's commitment, and I actually have UGA in the top spot with USC at number 2 in my personal power rankings. Just mine, hey. But Julian Lewis, when it comes to his recruitment, we just saw him set 5 visits for the spring. What does that tell you about where his decision timeline is at?
Well, really, those are unofficials.
Yes.
So he's got officials he can save and probably will take him.
We think he's going to take.
I think he'll take him. I think he'll take him. In my opinion, he'll take him in June. Look, Julian, better known as Juju.
Yes.
You know you're really good when you just go by your name, Juju, and everybody knows. You don't have to say his last name. It's Juju.
And there's other Jujus out there, but Julian Lewis takes the top spot.
The thing about Juju, what has put him more in the spotlight is now he's reclassed. His class of 2025.
Oh, it's go time.
Yeah, so it's like everything is sped up for him. Every visit now becomes that much more important. Not only did he reclass, he's going to be a mid-year. So he's out next December. He's leaving Carrollton High School after 3 years, and he will be enrolling somewhere. So everything and every visit is magnified for this 5-star prospect.
1 year from now, Julian Lewis will be prepping for spring
practice
ball
somewhere,
where we thought 8 weeks ago he was a 2026 recruit. Now, 1 year from now, he will be prepping for spring ball at whatever school he chooses. So Julian Lewis's recruitment kind of all over the place. He's going to see all these schools. When do we expect him back in Athens? And do you think that they lock that official visit in for the summer? Do they wait for the fall? I mean, what do you do if you're recruiting Julian Lewis?
I think you get him in the summer because I know Joey King at Carrollton, and he's not going to get in the way of any decision other than let's get this thing done before football starts, because we're trying to win the state championship. Joey King, Coach Trevor Lawrence, he's been through this before. He's been through the high publicity of a star quarterback. I think that he's going to Alabama on March the 8th. He'll be at Georgia again March 15th. He'll be at Auburn March 22nd, Colorado, and then USC. So that's the next round of unofficial visits. What I would do if I was a staff, When he gets there in March, I would set up that visit for June because I think it's going to go that long. But I don't see this going into football season. I've known Joey King a long time. He's not going to get in the way of anything, but he's going to want that decision over come August.
I like USC getting that last spring visit. Unfortunately for USC, I think this is only his spring visit tour. I think we'll see a summer visit tour.
It's like a good concert. It's like a good concert shirt. You know what I mean? You want to be on the back of that summer tour with Juju Lewis.
Juju Lewis hitting more schools, more towns than Dave Matthews this summer, but we'll see what happens. Interior offensive lineman Mason Short, he's out of Evans, Georgia, and he decommitted from Alabama when Nick Saban retired. Georgia was one of the first names that we heard. What are your sources saying on Mason Short? Who do you think the top competition is? What's going on in his recruitment?
Well, 4 schools he recently announced in Kentucky. Coach Walford left Alabama, went to Kentucky, so there's the relationship there. Alabama's always going to be in this thing, but we can go back to David Sanders. I think this one's going to come down to, in the end, Georgia and Clemson. It's going to be Matt Luke versus Stacy Sturls again. He's about an hour away from Athens and about an hour and a half away from Clemson. He's right there in Augusta, Georgia. Mason, a big-time target. He's been on everybody's radar since he was a 9th grader, big 6'6" prospect. Again, how do they grow like this in high school? But I think this one's going to come down to June visits again. Josh, you're going to have a busy June, man. So it'll come down to visits in June, and I think in the end, there's going to be 2 schools battling for Mason Short. It'll be Georgia and Clemson.
We're going to have to make a whiteboard with tally marks for Stacy Searles versus Matt Luke in the 2025 cycle for top offensive linemen. It seems like they are facing
some really big battles for sure.
For a bunch of them. All right, last name we're going to hit in this update is wide receiver Travis Smith, 6'4", 200 out of Westlake High School in Atlanta, Georgia, and his recruitment is blowing up. I know we like him. We have him in the top 150 right now. I could see him even moving up higher. What are your sources saying on Smith? I know he's definitely not in any time. He's not making a decision anytime soon. But who are the teams involved, and how do you feel about Georgia's chances?
From the Georgia perspective, I can give you one quote from him this week. I hit him up and I said, hey, have you heard from James Coley? This was about 2 hours after Coach Coley was announced. He goes, yeah, I've already talked to him. Super excited, great recruiter. It tells you that James Coley in that office said, hey, get on the phone with this guy right here. He's one of our major targets. I think Travis Smith is I haven't seen the board at Georgia, but he's up. If he's not up top, he's in that. He's in. I can commit at any time. We got a chance to see him at the Under Armour camp down in Carrollton. Smooth. I guarantee he's 6'3.5", legit. Ball skills, everything can separate. He's got the catch radius, everything. Just a hot going name term with Travis Smith out of Westlake High School. He is a massive, massive Georgia target, and we'll continue that with James Coley now.
Okay, so we are now about a week from the dead period ending. I believe 4th or 5th we'll see it open back up, contact period, visits, all that stuff. When can Georgia fans expect Athens to be the place to be again for recruits? What weekend is it look like that'll be?
Kirby Smart's procedure, his policy's kind of been every weekend's open. It's not one of those deals where you have the treasure hunt or all this and all these things right here.
5 recruits.
It's really, if we can have 10 this weekend and 10 the next and 10 the next, come on. So it's worked for Georgia. They do have those bigger junior days. Georgia had one in early January, but they came back in the last weekend. So it's not really, remember Dog Night used to be the big thing, and you would have 200, 300 prospects there, and that was such a big media thing. Well, Kirby Smart didn't do that. If you want to come visit Georgia and you can, come on. And that's how their policy's been.
Hey, and you get these smaller, more intimate groups. It's hard to spend on a big weekend. If you got 70 recruits in, how do you really spend time with each one? Whereas you bring in 8, 10, 12 guys a weekend, you can do that. So, all right. Well, recruiting for Georgia is about to heat up. Can you believe I got Rusty Mansell in studio today? Man, what a treat this was.
What a Cadillac spot you got up
here. Appreciate you coming by the new studio and dropping by the Inside Scoop today. Thank you for watching this video, and if you enjoyed that, go check out the hundreds of videos that we have on this channel, and also do me a favor, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel.